Okay, I have a sad but kind of amazing story for you on a really controversial and important topic. All of my work pretty much is based on this idea going back 2,000 years to the time of Epictetus that your thoughts create your moods. Like he said, humans are not disturbed by events, but by our thoughts about them. And that has led to cognitive therapy, and then in the 1970s we were developing cognitive therapy, and then since that time I've developed TEAM CBT, which is like cognitive therapy on steroids, but it's all based on the idea that when you're down, you have a lot of negative thoughts, like I'm a loser, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't be so screwed up, I shouldn't be so shy, I shouldn't have this or that problem, I shouldn't have made this or that mistake. And it's those thoughts that actually cause depression and anxiety and other negative feelings. Now, a lot of people agree, well, there's probably some truth in that, but they often fight me on it, and they say, oh, that's so stupid, David, or Dr. Burns, or whatever you want to call me. They say when something really terrible happens, you don't have to have thoughts in your head to be upset. And I've told separately the story of a man trapped on the railroad tracks when a train was coming. That's a pretty terrible event. But another type of one that they mention is like suppose you're dying of cancer. You just learn that you have terminal cancer. You're going to feel horrible. You're going to feel upset. And it's the cancer, not your thoughts, that create all of these negative feelings. But is that really true? Because if it's not true, that means one thing, and if it is true, that means another thing. And if it's true that our thoughts create our moods, then we would have a chance of changing the way we feel when genuinely horrible things happen, because they happen to all of us sooner or later. And I'm going to give you an example of someone who came to me, a colleague, who had been to the doctor the day before, and she had, I measure 9 negative feelings on my daily mood log on 0 to 100, depression, anxiety, guilt, shame, all kinds of stuff, hopelessness, humiliation, embarrassment, anger, frustration, you name it. And she had filled out a daily mood log, and she was 100 on every single negative emotion. And a human being cannot get more depressed or upset. Even if you go to our Stanford Hospital psychiatric inpatient unit and you test, people are being electroconvulsive therapy and massive doses of medications for depression, they won't score higher than that. It's impossible. So she was in a terrible, terrible state. And she was a dear and beloved colleague, and she said, David, I just went for my routine medical exam yesterday, and the doctor told me I have terminal stage 4 lung cancer, and can you help me? And so I actually sat down with her, and I'm going to just tell you a little bit about the story about that session. And if you want to hear it to find out if what I'm saying is true, it's actually one of the early podcasts. If you go to my website, feelinggood.com, there's a search function, and you can type in Marilyn or stage 4 lung cancer or something like that. And that there was actually several podcasts. I treated her for just one 2-hour session, but we broke it up into little pieces for multiple podcasts, and it's pretty amazing to listen to. But essentially, that gave me a chance to test this idea. When truly horrible things happen, is it your thoughts that upset you, or the event? Because if it's the event, we're screwed, because you can't change events. Marilyn can't change the fact that she's got stage 4 lung cancer. But if she could change the way she thinks, maybe she could change the way she feels and eliminate this incredible, overwhelming depression that she was feeling, and panic and anxiety and rage and all kinds of things. So at the beginning of the session, I worked with a colleague, Matt May, who happened to be, visiting that day. And I kind of like to do co-therapy, and he's really great. He's an MD. He's a former student. He's now a psychiatrist in Menlo Park, California, and I think he's perhaps the best psychotherapist in the world. He's a psychiatrist and MD, but he's really compassionate and really skillful. But at any rate, I said, to Marilyn, maybe Matt and I could kind of do tag team therapy and work with you. And so in the first part of the session, she was sobbing, she was overwhelmed, she was tearful, she was angry, she was anxious, she was shocked, and one of her negative thoughts was that this can't be happening, this can't be real, because I've never smoked in my entire life. And then she had a lot of other negative thoughts as she was sad and sobbing, and one of her thoughts was, I've wasted a lot of my life because of my alcoholism. Marilyn struggled during her life at times with alcoholism and had some negative consequences because of that. She became an active AA member. And then another one of her negative thoughts that she'd written down on her daily mood log is, I've been duped by religion, and I think that some of my mentors were probably frauds. And she was angry about that. She was a very religious woman. She was Catholic. She went to services every morning, 7 days a week. She meditated. She was extremely devoted to her religious faith. But now she was feeling disillusioned. And then she was telling herself, and these were her negative thoughts. Remember, our theme is, do your thoughts cause your emotions, or is it the reality that causes you to change the way you feel? And one little disarming thing here is that I'm not arguing that people should be happy all the time. That's just horse shit, and only a stupid fool would argue for something like that. When negative things happen, it's normal to feel negative feelings. But if you're getting into severe depression and panic and anxiety, there's a high likelihood that you're giving yourself a lot of distorted messages, and that's the cause of your angst. And if that's true, that's great news. But we'll find out here in this story. Is it true? Are these thoughts of Marilyn's distorted, and can she turn them around? And she was also gay, and she had a lot of persecution growing up because of that. It was the era before, at least here in California, were pretty loving toward people who were gay. In some parts of the U.S. and many parts of the world, gays are still persecuted, and she got a lot of persecution growing up. And one of her negative thoughts is, I'm defective because I've never had, and probably never will have, a loving life partner. And she believed these thoughts 100%. I've wasted my life because of my alcoholism. I've been duped by religion. I'm defective. Another thought, and maybe you've had thoughts like this, not like Marilyn's, but maybe you beat up on yourself and tell yourself you're no good, just exactly the way Marilyn was doing that day. And her fifth negative thought was, I'm not spiritual enough because I'm no longer convinced about the existence of God or the afterlife. And that's a should statement, and that's another one of the 10 cognitive distortions, and maybe you do that, use a lot of should statements too. And some people, Albert Ellis called the kind of a crazy but brilliant and pretty wonderful New York psychologist from the 1950s, and he called that shoulding on yourself. S-H-O-U-L-D, and shoulds are actually the cause of a great deal, if not all, of the world's emotional suffering. When you tell yourself, I shouldn't be so screwed up, or you shouldn't be so screwed up, you shouldn't feel this way, you've got no right to believe what you believe, those are other directed shoulds. They trigger anger. And then world-directed shoulds is the world shouldn't be so screwed up. And we can certainly see these days that the world is screwed up and seems to be getting more hateful and more screwed up. But anyway, that was one of Marilyn's should statements. I should be more spiritual. I should always believe in the existence of God. I should always believe in the afterlife. And And so after, Matt and I empathized with her and provided some warmth and connection, and she gave us an A on empathy. She said we were understanding her thoughts and understanding her feelings and treating her with respect and a sense of loving acceptance. And then we did some positive reframing to reduce her resistance to change, and showed what all these negative thoughts and feelings showed about her that was actually awesome and beautiful. And that was very helpful to her. And then we went to the M of TEAM. M equals methods. And that's how are we going to challenge these negative thoughts? And one of the first methods is identify the distortions. And when Marilyn looked at her thoughts, she saw a lot of the first distortion. And you may have occurred to you also all or nothing thinking. And I'm just kind of reviewing my notes here from that session, because it's been quite a few years now. But she said that she was maybe involved in all or nothing thinking when she says, I've wasted my life because of my alcoholism, and I'm defective because I've never had a true life partner, found a loving partner. So she's saying, because of these defects, these imperfections, then she's a totally defective. She's a total loser. She's a total failure, totally bad person. And then she's involved in a lot of should statements. I shouldn't have flaws, she's telling herself. I should be perfect. I should be able to fulfill all of my dreams for my life. I should always have tremendous faith in the existence of God, and I should always believe in an afterlife. And when she does that, or when you do that, you're kind of doubling your trouble. You see, Marilyn has a real problem to cope with, terminal cancer. There will be some pain, there will be metastases, there will be discomfort. But on top of that, she's beating up on herself. And her emotional suffering is the result primarily of these should statements, this all or nothing thinking, this mental filtering, this discounting the positive. Because sure, she had flaws. I've got flaws. I don't talk about them all the time, but I do sometimes. And I know that you've got a lot of flaws too. And we can either love ourselves because of our flaws, or we can hate ourselves. We can accept ourselves, or we can beat up on ourselves. And Marilyn's real problem is not the cancer today, although that is a real problem and a real concern. She needs good medical care and a lot of love and support. But her real problem is within her head. It's this relentless voice telling her, Marilyn, you're not good enough. Your life is coming to an end, and you're a failure, and you should believe more in God, and all of these unreasonable demands that she's putting on herself. And one of the things that we worked on during the session is like this discounting the positive and mental filtering. When she's telling herself she's defective and she's a failure, she's overlooking a lot of the accomplishments that she's had. She actually had, I've never heard of this before, 5 master's degrees that she went. She got a master's degree in theology and, I think philosophy, all kinds of topics. She went on to get a PhD in clinical psychology. And she had the most beautiful empathy skills, really, of anyone. She was such a kind and compassionate person. And in her therapy work, she worked with people who had the most serious mental problems, schizophrenia, and people who were homeless, people without resources. And that's who she focused on in her life. And she said, David, after I'm gone, I hope you'll tell people about me. And so they'll know not only about my flaws, but all about the good things too. And I said, I promise, Marilyn, I'm going to do that. And Marilyn, I hope you're up there listening and watching, because I'm fulfilling my promise to you today, because so many of us love you and appreciate you. And Marilyn went to South America. She worked with indigenous people. She worked for all kinds of environmental causes, and she was a real warrior. But now the question is, can she really change the way she feels by changing the way she thinks? Because that's the thing. If you've had a trauma, if you're dying of cancer, the question is it reasonable that you can find joy, that you can find laughter? And by the way, if you listen to that podcast, or some of the podcasts, the live therapy session with Marilyn, I was surprised when I listened to them. You're going to think this is terrible, but we spent about a quarter of the time giggling. Because, I don't know, it's a part of the therapy that I do, and it's so healing. But one other thing, yes, and see, she was saying, we did externalization of voices. Matt and I would take turns being the Marilyn, the negative Marilyn. We'd attack her with her own negative thoughts and get her to respond in a more positive and loving way. And if she couldn't do it, we did role reversals back and forth until she suddenly crushed the thought. But as the negative Marilyn, I told her, Marilyn, and I'll just read this here, I want to remind you that you've wasted your life because of alcoholism. Now, keep in mind that's a should statement. It's a blame statement. And I'm just talking to her the way she's talking to herself. And this gives her the chance to fight back. And she said, yes, I have wasted a lot of my life because of my alcoholism. And I feel ashamed of that. I regret that. But at the same time, I have a tremendous amount to be proud of. And I said to her, who won? She said, I did. And I said, big or small? She said, big. Said, big or huge? She said, huge. And that's what I'm trying to do in therapy, and why I've developed the Feeling Great app, to try to make these fantastic tools available to as many people as possible. And because our AI can role play with you the same way I role played with Marilyn, and Matt role played with Marilyn as well. So let's see now what comes next here. And she said that shift brought immediate relief. You see, the cancer is still there, but she's suddenly loving herself and supporting herself rather than beating herself down. And then we challenged this thought. She said, I've been duped by religion, and I think some of my mentors were probably frauds. And I said that to her, Marilyn, you've been duped by religion, and a lot of these mentors, people you've gone to, spiritual advisors, they were probably just frauds. And then she said, well, I may have been duped by a number of them. They may have been frauds in part. They may have had some good parts as well, but I have really benefited greatly from my religious faith, and no one can take that away from me. And I said, who won? And she said, I won huge. And that's the process that I go through with people. It's not just to get you to believe these negative thoughts about yourself and your life less, but to blow them away. And then she said, well, but David, how would I answer this thought? She says, I'm telling myself I'm not spiritual enough because I'm no longer convinced about the existence of God or the afterlife. And she said, how can I talk back to that? And then I told her, you know, Marilyn, I haven't told many people this, and this is a kind of a true story, but I used to jog home from the train station in Bryn Mawr to my home in Gladwin after work. And it was about a 3-mile jog. It just gave me, 15 extra miles or so every week. And it was, convenient because I had to get home some way. And I said, Marilyn, and there's this real steep hill I go up, and then after that, it's downhill just about a last half mile to my house. And when I was going up on that hill, I had a vision from God. And God told me, he said, David, if you believe in me, in my existence, if you believed in my existence, I would be incredibly disappointed in you. And I said, don't worry, big guy, I've got your back. And when I told Marilyn that story, she burst into laughter. And it was essentially giving herself permission to doubt the existence of God. And Mother Teresa, I'll look at all the great spiritual leaders throughout history, have all gone into moments of no faith and not believing in God, not believing in the afterlife. And Marilyn's problem is not that she doesn't believe in God at times or believe in the afterlife, but again, the idea that she's being mean to herself. And she can make the choice, and she made the choice to treat herself in a kind and loving way. And that's how the session went. And it's just a simple demonstration of what TEAM CBT is. And it answers the question, do our thoughts create our moods? Absolutely they do. But the thoughts that create shame and severe depression and intense loneliness and worthlessness and anger, those are distorted thoughts. All of Marilyn's thoughts were distorted. And at the end of the session, we asked her to re-rate her feelings. How depressed are you now? An hour and a half ago it was 100, Marilyn. What is it right at this moment? And she said 0. And how anxious are you and panicky? It was 100. She said 0. And how guilty and ashamed do you feel? 0. How worthless do you feel? 0. Everything went from 100 to 0. And she'll still be sad. It's appropriate to be sad. But, we're all sad at times, and we're all going to die. And the fact that we're going to die, like I'm 82. I'm going to die. I don't know, maybe tomorrow. But let's use our time to live, to be close to the people we love, to be filled with energy and enthusiasm and love for ourselves and love for others. And that's why I'm doing this. This is the most productive and greatest time of my entire life, to be honest with you. I think I'm having the greatest joy these days that I've ever had. But life is hard. We argue on the app team. We run into problems we have to solve. Life is a bumpy road for everybody, but I have tremendous joy because I practice what I preach. And right now, what I preach is caring about you and bringing these stories to you, because the tools that I've developed can be truly life-changing and life-saving, and that's what it's all about for me. And I think that's all about Marilyn. I told you about her life and what a fantastic and flawed person she was, and lovable person. And I talk to Marilyn every day when I go out on my walks. I talk to Marilyn. I talk to my pal Obi. I think you can see him in the picture there, the cat who taught me so much about being in the here and now. And you don't have to be special. Obi wasn't special. Marilyn wasn't special. She was in a way, but she was as flawed as Obi was. But we loved her, and I love all of you too. And I want to teach you how to love yourself, and it has to do not with some mystical concept, but by not giving yourself these messages that you're no good, that you're a loser, that you should be better than you are, and so forth. And if you'd like to learn how to do that, there are a lot of resources for you. One would be to check out our Feeling Great app. We've got AI, a little AI guy who's very much like David, would work with you the same way I worked with Marilyn. We've got David, who's very similar to me, teaching you in the app a lot of classes and lessons like this, right? Teaching you that you do feel the way you think, and you can change the way you feel, and teach you tools for making that happen. And try it. Go to the feelinggreat.com website and take a free ride and see if you like it. And if you like it, you can get a year subscription. It's not costly, but if you can't afford it, contact us. We'll give it to you for free. Or you can go to my website, and almost everything is free on my website, a free depression class, a free anxiety class, feelinggood.com. And I've got all kinds of books that have can have saved and changed the lives of millions of people. I've written books on how to overcome depression and anxiety, and they've sold over 10 million copies all around the world. And they're written at a simple 7th grade level, and they can also help you change the way you feel. And that's my dream, is to be able to bring some joy to you. Well, this has been a long story, but I hope it was worthwhile to you, and bring some joy to you, and as well as genuine sadness of Marilyn, how we lost someone truly beautiful and truly flawed, just like you and just like me, just like an awful lot of people. So that's it. Thank you for listening, and I really appreciate having the chance to hang out with you. Make sure you sign up to this channel if you want to subscribe, make a comment, tell us what you liked, what you disliked. I try as hard as I can to answer all of the comments, and so far we've been able to keep up with them. So if you have a question, put them in the comment, and I'll be sure to answer. And we might actually build up to a live Q&A session that perhaps you can attend. We're trying to figure out how to do that, and that would be fun. And then you could ask me your questions live. Okay, all for today. Have a good day. Bye-bye.